everybody. Welcome back. Albania, can't wait to hear your presentation over the next couple of days. Carmen, Tamara, Vanessa, welcome. Everybody watching on Facebook Live. ATSV, we're in our 5th year of the show. Pretty amazing. I'd like to bring back and welcome Rich Harper, who is a past speaker as well, and an expert on all things outdoors. His topic today is prospects for apparel and footwear with the new administration in Congress. This is definitely something that's been focused on. Everybody's wondering what's going to happen here with the new administration in town. What does this mean for the apparel industry? I think this is a great follow-up to the other two sessions that we had earlier. So Rich is with the Outdoor Industry Association. He's the Director of Government Affairs. So before I let you take it away, Rich, I just want to remind everybody that there's a Q&A function as well as a chat function. So if anybody had any questions for Rich along the way, please include them there and we'll address them at the very end of his presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and disappear here, but I'll be running support if you need me, Rich, or anybody else. So the floor is yours, my man.
Great, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, great to be with you all again. I appreciate the opportunity. Rich Harper, Director of Government Affairs for Outdoor Industry Association. I'm based in Washington, D.C., speaking to you from our auxiliary office in Bethesda, Maryland, my home residence of the past year and a half, but we're headquartered in Boulder, Colorado. So I wanted to just give some background on OIA and our trade program. The great thing about working for this industry is a diverse group of companies, from global brands that you'd recognize, Columbia and Patagonia, to smaller brands, Nemo Equipment, Sims Fishing Products. So runs the gamut from the global to the small mom and pop shops that you find on Main Street, USA. You know, for our trade program, we do represent both importers and domestic manufacturers alike. And as I often mentioned to colleagues on the Hill and in the administration, our Made in USA members also often utilize global value chains, not just for inputs, but also some finished product as well. The core of our trade program is what we call a balanced trade agenda. And this simply means that we support the elimination of import tariffs on outdoor products where there is no viable domestic production. And for our Made in USA members, we support policies to help them compete in a global economy. And so ultimately, our goal is the same for both. We want a stable, predictable US federal trade policy, which has been challenging over the past few years, a stable, predictable trade policy for all outdoor businesses. So our goal is to lower costs for outdoor businesses as they're developing new, innovative products, and ultimately lower costs for their customers. Our trade program over the past several years has seen some significant wins, and the source of those wins really is in that balanced trade agenda. So when we do develop an initiative, particularly on the import side, we work closely with domestic manufacturers to ensure, again, that we're not covering anything that's produced domestically. So we are part of an effort to add travel goods to the generalized system of preferences, the main trade preference program for developing countries, which I'll touch on in the presentation. We help develop the protective active footwear lines in the tariff schedule, lowering the import tariff on a particular type of performance footwear from 37.5% to 20%. We've developed a series of miscellaneous tariff bills, temporary duty suspension, reduction initiatives that have saved outdoor companies over $40 million. Again, always rooted in that balanced trade agenda of working hand in hand with importers and domestic manufacturers alike. I wanted to offer a little bit of what sets our industry apart and what really makes us distinct, unique in the apparel footwear space. And this is a great example of that, recreational performance outerwear. We were a part of the coalition, led the coalition to create new line in the tariff schedule that specifically define what is recreational performance outerwear and to ensure that these performance outerwear products are distinct and unique from other apparel products in the tariff schedule that previously had fallen under the same tariff lines. And so this is a good example of what makes them unique. In order to qualify as recreational performance outerwear, it has to be woven apparel, has to be water resistant, visibly coated or both, and it must have critically sealed seams. So those are the mandatory criteria. In addition to that, they must meet an additional 5 criteria, and the additional options are listed here. So it's no small task to qualify as recreational performance outerwear. This is innovative, high-tech apparel designed to withstand the rigors of outdoor recreation. So if you want to qualify as this particular type of product, you have a series of criteria to meet. So this is very different than ready-made or mass market apparel. And the infrastructure and know-how is very specific to these type of products. So we led the effort to create this new product category in the tariff schedule, and have been working for several years on the import tariffs on those products. Another example of our balanced trade agenda relates, and the unique nature of these products relates to travel goods. And so we worked on an initiative that, and again, reaching out to any domestic manufacturers, worked on an initiative to make travel goods eligible for the generalized system of preferences. And we did so in part because our members were looking for flexible sourcing options for backpacks and sports bags. They have significant import tariffs, 17.6% for a backpack and 20% for a sports bag. And other members are also engaged in luggage. What's interesting about the backpack is you see here, backpack suited for the outdoors, suited for outdoor recreation, camping, hiking, falls in the same tariff line as a backpack that my daughter utilizes for her schoolwork. And so we were looking at, providing some relief for outdoor companies and on their sourcing options, and provide some incentives to diversify their sourcing options. And so we worked on an initiative that made these products eligible for the generalized system of preferences, the main trade preference program for developing countries. The legislation was passed and signed into law in 2015, and ultimately in 2017, after a thorough review by the Obama and Trump administrations, they were made duty-free from all GSP countries. So an example of our balanced trade work, and an example of how duty-free incentives can provide incentives for members to diversify their sourcing options outside of China in particular. Another example of a very distinct and unique outdoor product that highlights how they're utilized for outdoor recreation, the rigors of outdoor recreation, is protective active footwear. And if you look at these two products here, they look very similar aside from the colors, but the one has a 20% duty rate previously, and the other had a 37.5% tariff rate. The only difference, of course, is the one on the right with the 37.5% tariff rate had a waterproof breathable liner, essential for outdoor recreation, for trail running, for hiking in the elements. You look at the two products, they look like the same shoe, but the one had a higher duty rate because it had that waterproof breathable liner. And so we reached out to our domestic manufacturers and developed an initiative that would put these two products at the same tariff rate of 20%. And we were successful. So that was also included in the 2015 legislation. And another example of how these are distinct, unique products, but oftentimes the outdoor characteristics of the product sometimes it results in a higher duty rate. And so because we were able to work with our domestic manufacturers and bring them to the table, we were able to get this initiative passed and signed into law to lower that duty rate. And I should also point out that the performance outerwear that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, those tariff rates can range from 7% to 27.5%. So again, a significant tax on our importers bringing these innovative outdoor gear to market. So this is again showing what we're able to do with protective active footwear, creating a new definition in the tariff schedule. These are specific for outdoor activities, for trekking, running, and trail running. And we also included a price point in that definition as an example of our work, again, with domestic manufacturers to ensure that we wouldn't cover any athletic shoe that was produced domestically. And you can see there with the key criteria, it has to be waterproof using a coated or laminated textile fabric. So that was essential to the definition of protective active footwear. We're able to get substantial duty relief for outdoor companies on this particular type of outdoor footwear product. So those are some of the successes and highlight some of the distinct, unique nature of outdoor products and performance apparel and performance footwear. Of course, over the past several years, our products got caught up in the US-China trade war, the 301 investigations. We were hit initially by the so-called List 3, which for outdoor purposes really included backpacks, as I mentioned earlier, and camp chairs and others. And so this points to some of the challenges that outdoor companies have faced over the past few years: distinct, unique products, oftentimes with very high import tariffs. And as a result of the US-China trade war, saw additional tariffs placed on top of those products. So that backpack coming in from China at 17.6% had a 25% tariff added on top of that, a tariff that remains in place. And the bread and butter of our industry is in apparel and footwear, and those were caught up in the so-called List 4A. Originally 15% became 7.5% punitive tariff as a result of the phase 1 deal. And thankfully the phase 4B, or the List 4B, that would have hit another round of apparel and footwear products was suspended. But again, with those punitive tariffs on products coming out of China on top of already high import tariffs, pose a serious challenge for outdoor companies over the past several years. We were successful in being able to make the case on some outdoor products that, given their unique nature and the inability of outdoor companies to source such products outside of China, we were able to secure some exclusions for some outdoor products, helmets, for example, or camp chairs is another example. Those exclusions did expire at the end of 2020, however. And right about at the end of 2019, coming into 2020, we first became aware of the COVID-19 pandemic, which also had a significant impact on global supply chains for outdoor companies. First from China, but also extending to other partners across the globe. And so a significant challenge for outdoor companies, particularly as operations in the US and abroad were suspended, retail outlets were closed. But what we've seen during this pandemic, and I think what gives a lot of apparel and footwear companies hope in 2021 and beyond, is that more Americans are getting outdoors, and some Americans are discovering the physical and mental health benefits of outdoor recreation, sometimes for the very first time. My wife had to drive about an hour and a half outside of our residence in Maryland to find our daughter a new bicycle. They just weren't in stock. I think points to, as Americans were working from home and staying at home, they were getting outdoors more than ever. And as I said, some for the first time. And so there's a huge demand for outdoor equipment, bikes, and tents and sleeping bags and the like, apparel, footwear, and other products. And so I think what gives companies some hope is, after the challenges of the trade wars and the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, there is this surge in interest in outdoor recreation, and our members want to build on that and sustain those customers for a lifetime. So it does give us a significant amount of hope. As outdoor companies are emerging from the pandemic and looking at their options, and even before the trade war and the pandemic, as I mentioned, there was an interest in diversifying their supply chains and trying to find alternative options outside of China, and this process is continuing. These are just two examples of sleeping bag imports coming from Vietnam, and protective active footwear imports come from Vietnam. And you see significant increases in sourcing from Vietnam for both. So Vietnam has solidified itself as a key sourcing option for outdoor companies. The challenge we've seen is, particularly for a lot of small and medium-sized brands, is that Vietnam is at capacity for many of these products. And the smaller and medium-sized businesses have particular challenges in finding partners in Vietnam for those products. So while you see the surge in sleeping bags and in protective footwear, and again, these are just the two examples, there are many others, Small and medium-sized businesses, outdoor businesses in particular, are looking elsewhere for additional options to diversify their supply chains and bring product to market. So the generalized system of preferences has gotten a lot of attention for outdoor companies. This is the main trade preference program for developing countries. Eligible products from eligible countries such as Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, enter the US duty-free. And as I mentioned, we help lead the effort to add travel goods to the GSP program, and OIA members have utilized those options. So we've seen a significant shift in sourcing to GSP countries, which I'll get into shortly, as a result of this initiative. So that 17.6% backpack sourced from Indonesia comes into the US duty-free. Talk about additional challenges on top of challenges. We've seen the benefits of sourcing from GSP countries. The program did expire at the end of 2020, so it was not renewed by Congress, and remains a top priority for us to get this done in 2021. We take comfort in the fact that other reauthorization of GSP after the program has expired has resulted in any duties paid refunded. So when the program expired at the end of the year, outdoor companies started paying duties again on those products sourced from GSP countries. But duties that when the program is reauthorized, we're highly confident that those duties will be refunded. And we just saw that Chairman Wyden of the Senate Finance Committee introduced legislation for a 7-year extension of GSP. And so that will help members get in those duties that have been paid refunded. And we're also, pushing for it to be renewed because, for smaller brands, it is and coming out of COVID, it is a liquidity challenge, when you're paying these extra import tariffs. And so what is one of our top priorities, and I'll get a little bit more into the landscape of the road ahead on GSP, but it has become an attractive sourcing option for outdoor companies, particularly in the travel good space. And here's some great examples of that, where you've seen imports of GSP eligible travel goods from China decline and go up from GSP eligible countries. And when I was testifying on behalf of the industry before the administration on the China 301 tariffs, and when I was asked, where have you seen success in members being able to diversify their sourcing options, I was able to point to the travel good initiative and able to show how if you make those products duty-free from GSP countries, you fulfill the benefit of the program of providing development opportunities for GSP countries, but you also provide some economic benefit for the US as the duty savings go into job growth, economic development, new products for outdoor companies, and also a diverse supply chain. So without that heavy emphasis on China. So you can see the significant shift there on travel goods since those products were added to the GSP program. And really that shift was occurring even before they made duty-free, but has accelerated since the products became duty-free. So what we're looking at with GSP, as I mentioned, is seeing significant shift, for travel goods into the GSP program. But with the uncertainty around the program expiring and the uncertainty of when it will be renewed, it's a challenge for companies that are making sourcing strategies and looking to identify a more diverse supply chain. He was speaking to a member who's already pricing for spring 22 products, and whether or not GSP is going to be renewed and when they might get those duties paid refunded does provide a significant challenge as you're trying to develop prices for those products. We also noticed during the Trump administration that many GSP countries came under review, or their status under GSP came under review. So again, creates some uncertainty with Indonesia and Thailand in particular. But I would point out that we successfully helped lead the effort to preserve the duty-free benefits for travel goods under GSP for Thailand. And so while they saw some of their benefits suspended, we were able to preserve the benefit for travel goods, in part making the case that it helps move the sourcing options or diversify sourcing options for outdoor companies out of China. We've seen Turkey graduate from GSP program, India suspended. So there is some challenges and uncertainty around GSP, and this new administration could also look at the eligibility criteria of beneficiary countries. And Chairman Wyden's legislation that he introduced on GSP also included some additional criteria in the realm of human rights. So it is attractive sourcing options for outdoor companies, but because it's a program that needs to be renewed, and because it has been highlighted by the previous administration, some of the beneficiary countries' eligibility was highlighted by the previous administration, and the status of these countries could be reviewed by this administration, it does pose some challenges for outdoor companies that are looking to diversify their sourcing options. But we maintain that it's if you're going to increase the eligibility criteria for beneficiary countries, which we support, you should also expand the product coverage. You add products to the GSP program. It provides an additional incentive for a beneficiary country to match those criteria. And so we've been working on an initiative in the footwear space that would make certain outdoor footwear products like hiking shoes and trail running shoes and protective active footwear shoes eligible for the GSP program. And consistent with that balanced trade agenda I mentioned, we worked with our domestic manufacturers to ensure that we're not covering anything that is produced domestically. And the bill has been endorsed by domestic manufacturers like Danner Boots and LL Bean. And so this will be the first step in a process. So we anticipate that the legislation will be introduced over the next few weeks. And even then, if it's passed and signed into law, as we hope with an extension of GSP, we would still have to file petitions with the administration to make the case that those products should be duty-free under GSP. So there'd be an additional step that we'd have to take before we saw any duty-free benefits. But with a longer-term extension of GSP, and with this initiative passed and signed into law, and if the products are made duty-free, I think you'll see a significant shift, as you did with travel goods, into GSP countries. It's a narrow, targeted initiative. It covers about 25% of all footwear products, and even probably a smaller percentage than that of overall imports, because again, in order to attain any duty-free benefit, they would have to be sourced from a GSP country. But it's a great example of how outdoor companies are looking to diversify their supply chains, and duty-free incentives building on the travel goods initiative can help accelerate that process. Our members are also looking at our FTA partners, and here's a list of US FTA partners. The benefits of a free trade agreement, of course, as compared to GSP, is that it doesn't have to be, once it's passed, it doesn't have to be renewed by Congress, although as we saw under the previous administration, the NAFTA agreement was renegotiated and had to be passed by Congress again, and there were some tweaks made to the US-Korea trade agreement. But it does provide a benefit of having duty-free benefits, in most cases already in place, reciprocal duty-free market access, so also of interest to our domestic manufacturers. What we've highlighted with our partners in some of these FTA countries is, as you saw, the outdoor apparel and outdoor footwear is distinct and unique from other apparel and footwear products. And so the apparel in particular has to have the infrastructure and the know-how to be able to develop the type of recreation performance outerwear that I discussed at the beginning of my presentation. And some of these FTA partners just don't have that. But nevertheless, it's an option that we've highlighted for our members in an uncertain and in some cases unpredictable trade environment. So that brings us to this new administration and how I think we can work with the Biden administration and what the trade environment might look like for outdoor apparel and footwear companies. I think we've already seen a new tone, a multilateral approach to these issues, but clearly the priority of this administration is on domestic priorities and responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, jumpstarting the economy, and now moving forward with an infrastructure package. So that's the clear focus of the administration. In looking at the China 301 tariffs, we're confident that we won't see any new tariffs, and the administration is eager to pursue a more multilateral approach with China. But I'd advise members that these tariffs are likely to remain in place for the foreseeable future. President Biden's new US Trade Representative, Catherine Tai, has been on the job for a few weeks, has promised a top to bottom review of US-China trade policy, but no indication as yet of when that review would be completed or what might be the next steps on these tariffs. And so I've advised members that those tariffs are likely to remain in place for now. There is an opportunity, we believe, on a new exclusion process. So recreating a process to give stakeholders the opportunity to make the case that certain products should be exempt from the China 301 tariffs, as we saw with, as I mentioned, exemptions that we are able to secure for bike helmets and camp chairs and other products. And so we'll continue to push for a final agreement to remove all punitive tariffs on outdoor products sourced from China. But in the meantime, give outdoor companies another chance to make the case that certain products should be excluded from those punitive tariffs. I think we have a key opportunity there. We're also following closely Vietnam and US-Vietnam trade relations. Towards the end of the Trump administration, there was the threat that the Trump administration would impose tariffs under the same provision as US trade law that led to the US-China trade war due to Vietnam's currency practices and trade in wood products. We were relieved to see that no action was taken. And I think with this administration, we're looking for the opportunities to develop potentially a new free trade agreement with Vietnam, either bilaterally or rejoining TPP. But really, both of those possibilities would hinge on trade promotion authority, the authority that Congress would give the president to negotiate a deal, bring back to Congress for an up or down vote without the possibility of any amendments. And we haven't seen a lot of interest on the Democratic side in particular for reviving TPA as yet. I recall that the last time TPA was passed, I think about 28 House Democrats, when they were in the minority, supported the last round of trade promotion authority. Now in the majority on both sides of the Hill, it could be a challenge to move trade promotion authority legislation anytime soon. So I think on new trade agreements, not quite yet on something like rejoining the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but there'll also be an added emphasis on any future trade agreements on climate, as well as building on the new labor and environmental provisions of the new USMCA. So I think we'll likely see added provisions on labor and environment, as well as new provisions on climate, which is, I think, central to the administration's agenda across the board. And as I mentioned, Chairman Wyden's new GSP legislation includes additional human rights criteria for GSP countries. It also includes moving the package of miscellaneous tariff bills that also were supposed to be voted on at the end of 2020, but lapsed into 2021. That provides significant relief for outdoor companies on footwear in particular. So that Wyden legislation also moves that package of MTBs and also authorizes the creation of new rounds of miscellaneous tariffs bills for 22 and 25. And so I anticipate that if that legislation moves, that we'll be active and engaged in that space. Again, finding every opportunity possible to secure some kind of tariff relief for outdoor companies. So this is what we expect to see, and I've touched on some of these already. We're pushing for a new exclusion process, extending existing exclusions that expired at the end of 2020, as we work with, as part of also a broader coalition, to push for a comprehensive deal that would eliminate all punitive tariffs on outdoor products sourced from China. Well, I think we'll continue to see movement movement out of China for a number of outdoor products is looking to get around the punitive tariffs, find sourcing options in GSP countries or FTA partner countries. But in many cases, China remains the best option for many outdoor products and for many outdoor companies, not just on the quality product, but also because of the relationships that some companies have with partners in China that go back decades. So while I think you'll see that continued interest in GSP and FTA partners, for many outdoor companies, China will remain and has remained the best and most viable option. And I might also point out that outdoor companies have a strong interest in sustainability. And so sourcing partners that can match the sustainability standards for outdoor companies who have a strong interest in things like organic cotton, recycled material, bio-based materials, partners that can show the capacity to create those products or manufacture those products to the sustainability standards that outdoor companies demand, and an increasing number of outdoor consumers expect, we'll find willing partners with many outdoor companies. And then finally, we'll continue to track the prospects for Trade Promotion Authority. I'm not high optimistic on seeing any movement this year or any new free trade agreements come down the pike. But we'll continue to explore those opportunities with the Biden administration as they move into year two, get by the infrastructure package that is really at the top of their agenda now. So I don't want to squelch any future opportunities for a new trade promotion authority or new free trade agreements. But as I mentioned, I think the focus of the administration right now still remains on domestic priorities. So I covered a lot of ground there. Happy to answer any questions on the state of the industry and what we expect from Congress in the administration. So that's my contact information. Our Harper at outdoorindustry.org. You can also learn more at outdoorindustry.org, our website, and you can follow me on Twitter for previously all things outdoor trade related, and you can still get those updates. But now that I'm covering our policy agenda, if you're interested in climate and recreation and public lands and conservations, you can also follow me on Twitter for more there. So with that, Jason, I'll stop here and happy to answer any questions.
Right. Thank you very much, Rich. I really appreciate all that. Thorough as always. Okay, we do have one question here. Can you speak to textiles for headwear versus footwear, cooling fabrics in particular? I'm not quite sure if that's meant to be about trade or Carmen.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I guess actually, I mean, we've had a number of members that hats fell into that list 3 of categories that were hit by the U.S.-China tariffs. And individual companies that focus on hats, and then most of our brands in the apparel footwear space also have hats with their company logo. So that has been another product that has been hit by those punitive tariffs, and where companies have looked for options outside of China. So it has been a particular challenge for those companies. And so I think with helmets, for example, which obviously a little bit different than just your normal trucker hat. As I mentioned, we were able to make the case on helmets, at least, that because of it's a safety equipment, it really should be exempt from those 301 tariffs. But even that was a challenge in making the case to the administration. First, it was on the list, and then we had to file an exclusion to remove them from the list. So those are products that, even the more casual trucker hat, most of our brands have those in their product categories. And if they're sourced from China, they face an additional 25% tariff, which many try to find alternative options. But as I said, in some cases, decide to remain in China.
Yeah, 25 could make or break an order depending on,
That's right.
factors. So that's okay. Let's see here. Okay, startup headwear line for outdoor, looking for options. Yeah, that's
I'd be happy to follow up and discuss further. As I mentioned, there, with options around FTA partners, it's something worth exploring for things like hats. So happy to connect further on that.
Yeah, and I really do encourage everybody, especially when our speakers and panelists post their contact information. Highly, highly, highly encourage people to reach out. That's why they're here. It's a wealth of knowledge that they have, and it really help you avoid some costly mistakes, or just put you in the right direction especially if you're a startup. So take a screenshot, jot down your notes. We'll leave it out there for a minute. I'm not seeing any other questions here.
I might also just maybe quickly highlight, if you're an OI member, one of the benefits of being an OI member is that you have access to our outside trade consultants from Serenity Salmon and Associates, who can give OI members a briefing on supply chain options, the trade landscape. So another tool in your arsenal as an OI member as you're looking to make these kind of sourcing decisions or get engaged in the outdoor trade space.
Fantastic. Rich, as always, it's very good to see you. I'm hoping I can actually see you in person for once. And,
I very much appreciate that. Yes,
we've had you here on the virtual stage a couple times now, and we're thinking 2022 is when it's going to finally go back to in person, which we very much enjoy.
I look forward to that. I look forward to that.
Just want to remind everybody that Rich and other of our other speakers and panelists will be inside the show office, essentially is what we're calling it. It basically takes the place of the show floor. It's in the main dashboard page for the virtual show. It's about halfway down the page. It's called the show office. You go in there for matchmaking. You can ask an ATS rep if you're looking for a specific supplier or resource. Also meet other attendees, and you can also engage with a lot of our speakers as well. So highly encourage you to go check that out. Also, we have 2 exhibition rooms on that same page where our exhibitors are located. So please go in there and take a look. We'll be back here shortly with our final seminar of the day. Rich, you take care.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.